She laughed in my face, not in a mean, mocking way. It was worse. A short, almost pitying laugh. The kind of laugh a woman lets out when she realizes you haven't yet grasped the rules of the game, and that you've already lost before you even start playing. I had just tried to confess my feelings to her. Yes, deny myself, with that romantic naivete they taught us in the afternoon movies. We were sitting on the grass during a break, and I thought that would be the day everything would change. But what really changed was my worldview. Not only did she not take me seriously, but days later she was kissing a guy who didn't have half the good heart I thought was my competitive advantage. He was confident, insolent, and had a demeanor that bordered on arrogant. And yet, she didn't just choose him, she desired him. It was then that I began to understand something brutal. In the game of attraction, good intentions don't protect you, they condemn you. I was the typical nice guy, the one who listens, who respects, who helps with college work, a guy everyone said would make a great boyfriend, but was never chosen, that gnawed at me for years, until in a fit of frustration, I started studying. Social psychology, neuroscience, books on power, influence, and yes, seduction. I went from Shakespeare to Ovid, from Robert Greene to Neil Strauss. What I found wasn't a magic formula. What I found was the truth no one has the courage to tell you. Women aren't bad. The system isn't unfair. The problem is you don't understand the rules. And if you don't understand the game, you're the piece. And the piece never wins. It just moves. That's when the Player Triad emerged. Not as a cheap manual of ready-made phrases and party tricks, but it's like social engineering based on 3 fundamentals that shape women's perception of you: perceived value, your game, and your level of exposure. They're like the 3 legs of a tripod. Miss one, and everything collapses. And before anyone raises the "this is manipulation" flag, I'll challenge you with a quote from Nietzsche. Everything done for love is always beyond good and evil. What he means is not that the ends justify the means, but that when you understand the game of seduction, you're not corrupting anyone. You're simply becoming the kind of man who activates deep, unconscious impulses in women. Impulses that were already there before you arrived. The right question isn't, is this right or wrong? The question is, do you want to continue being ignored while guys half as intelligent master the game just because they understand how to play? I know what my answer was, and from now on you'll discover how to access that same code. But a warning, what you're about to hear here isn't gentle. It isn't pleasant. At many points, it will make you uncomfortable, because it will expose exactly what you didn't want to face about yourself. But if you have the courage to continue, the reward is real. It's not just about getting women, it's about commanding presence. It's about building respect. It's about becoming a man who doesn't demand attention, he attracts it. So take a deep breath, because now you're about to enter a world where what feels right is often what keeps you the furthest from success. Chapter 1: The Fatal Mistake That Makes You Invisible to Women. Have you ever walked into a room, looked around, and had the distinct feeling that no one saw you? I'm not talking about literal invisibility. I'm talking about that cruel silence where your presence doesn't change the atmosphere, where the woman you found interesting looks right through you as if you were part of the furniture. It's this kind of invisibility that destroys the self-esteem of ordinary men and shapes the personalities of future players. There is no transformation without trauma, and the trauma of invisibility is the most powerful spark of male change. Now listen to this. Women don't see the world the way you do. Attraction, for them, isn't logical. It's sensory, it's unconscious. They don't evaluate your intentions, they pick up on your signals. And herein lies the fatal error, thinking that being nice is enough. This is the cruelest lie we've been told. A woman won't feel desire just because you're polite. In fact, if you convey signals of passivity, of bodily weakness, of aesthetic neutrality, she'll feel bored. And boredom is the greatest killer of attraction. The first pillar of the Player Triad is perceived value. And here lies a contradiction that needs to be unraveled. Your real value matters little. What matters is what she perceives. This is uncomfortable because it hurts our rational ego, but it's the truth. Seduction isn't a resume, it's transmitted energy. It's visual. It's posture. It's a biological signal. And if you don't learn to master these signals, your true value will rot inside a shell no one wants to open. Do you think the problem is that she doesn't really know you? No, the problem is that she doesn't want to know, because nothing about you made her want to open that door. Perceived value is your entry pass into the game. Without it, there's no conversation, there's no space, there's no desire. So what builds perceived value? Everything that communicates that you're a man who knows who he is and who can protect, provide, and lead. This starts with the body. Evolutionarily, women are programmed to be attracted to signs of strength and vitality. It's not about being a musclehead, it's about looking functional, healthy, and fit. Having a minimally athletic physique isn't vanity. It's a language. Your body speaks. And what is it saying today? After the body comes style. Men's clothing with a slim fit, solid colors, and sturdy fabrics. A style that exudes strength, not an attempt to win approval. And it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Well-fitting jeans, a strategically cut t-shirt, or boots that command presence. This already changes the energy in the room. The point is, stop dressing like you want to go unnoticed, because you will. And you will remain invisible. Now let's talk about your face. Your face is your calling card. And yes, your hair is the frame of your expression. A haircut that aligns with the shape of your face completely transforms people's perception of you. Your teeth? A straight smile is one of the most universal signs of health and confidence. And before anyone says this is frivolous, remember Nietzsche, appearance is not just appearance. It is the higher reality. In the game of attraction, there is no depth without surface. Taking care of your skin, eliminating acne, aligning your eyebrows, using contact lenses instead of glasses. Are these details? Yes, but it's the details that separate the average man from the magnetic man. Women notice, always. And not out of malice, but because they're biologically programmed to identify patterns of dominance and aptitude in seconds. But it's not just physical. Material status also speaks volumes. Money, yes, communicates value. Not because women are self-serving, that's the weak argument, but because financial stability is one of the greatest indicators of competence in the real world. Having money isn't what makes you attractive, it's what money symbolizes, your ability to solve problems, accumulate resources, and influence your environment. This activates ancestral impulses. That's why those who don't build an income build resentment. And a resentful man doesn't attract, he repels. Now pay attention to this. None of these factors are isolated. They add up, amplify each other, interconnect into a narrative. Perceived value is the sum of all the signals you emit without needing to speak. And this narrative begins long before you say hi. It begins with your entrance, with the way you walk, occupy space, and carry yourself among other men. And it continues in the invisible traits, in your self-confidence, your body language, your scent, your breath. Want the brutal truth? Sometimes an uglier guy, one with less education, less ethics, beats us in the fight for a woman. Why? Because he understands that seduction is an animal. That attraction comes from below, not above. It starts with instincts, not arguments. And if you still try to seduce a woman like you're interviewing for a job, my brother, you've already lost. You're playing chess in an MMA ring. And here's the key. Perceived value is manipulable. It can be built, amplified, intensified. But to do so, you need to kill the version of yourself that believes who I am inside is enough. This is the greatest modern trap. The idea that your magical inner self will be discovered by someone special. It won't be. Women aren't archaeologists, they're signal hunters. They want to feel something. And if you don't provoke that feeling, you become a landscape. You don't have to be the most beautiful, but you do have to be the most interesting. You need to be the one who emits codes that others can't ignore. This requires aesthetics, presence, body language, social dominance, and a dose of mystery. The seducer doesn't explain himself. He emanates. He doesn't chase attention. He attracts attention without asking for it. He has presence, and presence is the oldest form of power. Want to see this in practice? Think of Cleopatra. Historians say she wasn't all that beautiful, but she was so powerful, so magnetic, so refined in her presence that she dominated the most influential men of the ancient world. Caesar, Mark Antony. She used her perceived value as a weapon. It wasn't just charm, it was political and sexual engineering. You can use this engineering too, but it requires intention and discipline. it requires stopping dressing like a tomboy. Stopping walking like someone is apologizing for existing. It requires changing your voice, your look, your presence. And it all starts with the decision that you will no longer be invisible. The world doesn't reward those who are good. It rewards those who are perceived as valuable. And if that still bothers you, great, because being annoying is the first step to moving forward. The pain of being ignored can be the best thing that ever happened to you, if it makes you seek evolution. Because now, with perceived value in your control, you will enter the next level of the game, where speech becomes a weapon, where the look becomes a test, where silence is more powerful than praise. And that's exactly where the real game begins. Chapter 2. Game, the method that separates beggars from alpha males. The funniest thing, or perhaps the most tragic, is that even after changing my appearance, gaining lean muscle, fixing my hair, and trading in my baggy jeans for form-fitting ones, I was still rejected. I'd walk into rooms and, yes, now I'd be noticed. But when it came time to open my mouth, everything fell apart. I became the handsome guy, the guy with presence who loses everything when he speaks. And then I understood the second level of the game. The part that no one teaches you in school, that your father couldn't explain to you, and that you don't learn by watching Netflix series. The true power lies in the game. Game isn't about speaking beautifully. It's about knowing what to say, how to say it, and above all, who you become while you're saying it. It's your energy, your cadence, your emotional presence. A man without a game is like a luxury car without an engine. He might be impressive from afar, but he won't go anywhere. And the first point where it all begins is your voice. Notice, emotional beggars speak softly, hesitate, and drawl as if asking permission to exist. They ask, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" with that "I'm sorry to bother you" tone. Guess what? You've already lost. Tone of voice is the first code of trust. Confident men speak as if they have a right to be heard. They don't ask for space, they occupy it. The difference is subtle but devastating. Now, get this. There's a technique we teach in our audiobook, The Forbidden Manual, called vocal anchoring of attraction. It trains your voice to trigger confidence and desire in a woman's subconscious in less than 60 seconds. It's not magic. It's neuroassociation. The way you pronounce certain words, pause at certain points, and project your voice can activate unconscious triggers of submission and attention in the other person. It's seduction beginning before the conversation makes sense. This is right there in the audiobook, but here you already get the principle. Never speak asking for approval. Speak like someone who already knows they're desired, even if they're not yet, because that's what trains your brain to become that guy. But it's not just the voice. The gaze is the second pillar of the game. And here's an uncomfortable truth. If you look away, you reveal fear. And fear is an anti-fetish. Women are experts at detecting insecurity. A firm, direct but non-invasive gaze conveys dominance. A gaze that holds hers for 3 seconds and then naturally looks away creates sexual tension. And tension, my friend, is the raw material of desire. Remember Tyler Durden in Fight Club? He didn't need to say much. His gaze carried threat, mystery, and magnetism. A good player doesn't look like he's asking for permission. He looks like he's already in control of the narrative. But it's not all about visual presence. There's what we call calibrated physicality. Touch, proximity, territoriality. If you talk to a woman from 2 meters away, you're telling her body that you're strangers. Her body interprets distance as disinterest or worse, submission. But it's also not about invading. Good game is knowing when and how to approach. The rule is simple: mirror and rhythm. If she backs away, you back away. If she approaches, you approach. If she touches your arm, you respond. It's a dance, it's not an attack, and there's no point in feigning naturalness if you live locked up at home. The last pillar of the game is the most neglected: active sociability. Men who live stuck in solitary routines never develop the social muscle. And without that muscle, all their smooth talk becomes theory. The real game takes place in unpredictable environments. Bar, club, event, cafe, beach. Every interaction is a practice run. Every woman you approach is a testing ground. And with every mistake, you adjust. Want to know why so many smart guys fail with women? Because intelligence without social calibration turns into arrogance, insecurity, or paralysis. You overthink, and those who overthink don't act. The seducer doesn't act because he's 100% confident. He acts despite fear. And this courage, repeated, becomes competence. This is the golden rule of social practice. Most guys wait to feel confident before acting. But the truth is, confidence comes from action. And the more you act, the more you realize that no rejection is lethal. That no woman has real power over you. And that the game is much more about expressing yourself than pleasing someone. And here comes another point we teach in the Forbidden Manual, the emotional disidentification technique. In it, you learn to separate your identity from your performance. In other words, if an approach fails, it says nothing about who you are. It only reveals what you can still adjust. This technique creates psychological freedom. Because when you stop judging yourself, you start playing. And perhaps this is the biggest mental shift you'll experience in this video. You don't need to be perfect to attract women. You just need to master the game enough to convey the right codes. Because desire isn't fair. It's biological. It's primal. And when you learn to control the emotional environment of a conversation, tone, pace, presence, physicality, you don't even need to be the best looking. You just need to be the most calibrated. Most guys' mistake is trying to win women over through logic. They explain, they argue, they justify. But female desire is born from mystery, tension, and the breaking of expectations. It's the well-placed silence. It's the interrupted compliment. It's the "I don't know if you deserve me to tell you this" instead of "you're beautiful." It's the power to turn the emotional tide, to steer the conversation so she starts striving for your validation. When that happens, you leave the realm of traditional seduction and enter the realm of the few who master the invisible game. So, if you thought Chapter 1 was intense, this is where the real action begins. Because this is where a man stops being reactive and becomes intentional. This is where you understand you don't need to chase, you need to know how to attract. This is where you realize desire isn't begged for, it's activated. And if you want to learn the invisible structures behind the voice that hypnotizes, the gaze that captures, and the presence that dominates, I tell you with absolute clarity, when this video ends, check out the audiobook The Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds. It's not just content, it's a new nervous system being installed within you. And if you apply it, you'll become the man other women talk about among themselves, not understanding why they can't ignore you. But calm down. Before you rush in, breathe. Because the third and final chapter will show you the last piece of the game. The missing piece for all of this to work. Because what's the point of having value and knowing how to play if no one sees you? This is what separates invisible seducers from unbeatable strategists. And you're about to find out exactly what's going on. Chapter 3, Exposure, the silent weapon of the 1%. You can be the most accomplished, most attractive, and most charismatic man in the world. You can have the perceived value of a king, the game of a seductive diplomat, and the voice that would make even Siri obey without hesitation. But if no one sees you, you're still just another anonymous master of invisibility. And there's no glory in being amazing when no one sees you. This is where the third and most underrated pillar of the Player Triad comes in: strategic exposure. And let's start with a simple metaphor. A diamond at the bottom of the ocean is worth as much as any other stone because no one sees it. Now place that diamond on a pedestal with the right lighting in a room full of eyes, and it becomes a relic. Its value lies not only in what it is, but in who sees it and how they see it. You are the diamond, bro. You're just hidden. Most guys live in environments where exposure to the opposite sex is almost non-existent. Home, work, gym during off-peak hours. And that's it. They believe they'll one day meet someone by chance. But the brutal truth is, in modern love, chance is a strategy for the lazy. You don't meet women by luck. You meet them when you're where they are and when they pay attention. College, for example, is a near-perfect ecosystem. Women of all personalities, tribes, styles, and vulnerabilities. A veritable social playground. If you're still in this period of life, you're playing on easy mode. But if you, like me, have already moved on from this phase, you need to create your own ecosystems of exposure. Bars, clubs, events, bustling cafes, hobby groups, group trips, anything that generates social flow and frequent eye contact with new women. It's not just about volume. It's about being seen repeatedly. Repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity is one of the biggest triggers of attraction. You don't need to approach 50 women a night. You need to be in environments where 50 women can notice you before you even say anything. You need to build a silent presence. The guy who arrives, observes, laughs confidently, performs a social ritual lasting a few minutes and disappears, but leaves a trail. This is the man who starts to get talked about. But be careful. Being in high-exposure environments without understanding the visual code is social suicide. And here, you already learned in Chapter 1 how to build this code: appearance, posture, aesthetics. Now it's time to put it out there. And that's the role of social media. Today, Instagram is your personal billboard, your shop window. What you post, what you share, what you portray yourself to be, all of this is creating a narrative. Either you control this narrative, or it erases you. Are you still using Instagram as a photo album of dogs and food? You're wasting your time. Use it as a weapon of exposure. Showcase interesting events, beautiful people around you, moments when you're dominating the room. But be careful. Never overdo it. Don't post to show off. Post to be noticed. The goal isn't to prove anything. It's about leaving traces of a lifestyle magnetic enough to make her wonder, who is this guy? In fact, one of the most powerful techniques in our audiobook, The Forbidden Manual, is called Passive Awakening of Feminine Curiosity. It teaches you how to organize your digital storefront, especially stories and highlights, to create an invisible narrative that activates the desire radar of your followers. You don't force anything, you just suggest it. And she feels it. She feels something she can't name, but that makes her come back for more. This is in the full material. But if there's one rule you can apply today, stop using your social media as a spectator. Start using it as an architect of desire. Now think beyond Instagram. Are you in the right environments? Do you meet women from different circles? Do you frequent places with high social energy? Do you bother going to that party even when you're tired, just to practice your presence? Do you accept the invitation to that group meeting with strangers even when you're lazy? If the answer is no, you're still waiting for desire to knock on your door. And desire doesn't pay visitors. Desire responds to stimulation. In fact, what differentiates the seducer from the amateur is that he doesn't depend on the environment, he creates the environment. He is the magnet. When he enters, the atmosphere changes. This is only possible with frequent exposure, with active social practice, with constant calibration, and, above all, with a silent reputation. You want women to talk about you, even when you're not there. This only happens when you're present enough to be noticed, and rare enough to be remembered. Exposure also requires emotional strategy. Being present doesn't mean being overly available. The magnetic man appears with impact, leaves a strong emotional impression, and disappears. This is what we call in the Forbidden Manual high-value intermittent presence. You appear, activate the right triggers, and disappear before she labels you just another one. And when she senses your absence, desire begins. Desire is born in the gap, not in the excess. And here's the golden conclusion. Perceived value, game, and exposure don't work alone. Together, they form the engine. But the energy that activates all of this comes from within. It comes from your emotional identity, from the type of man you decide to be when no one is looking. You can practice your aesthetic, master your game, move in the right environments. But if your base energy is still needy, begging, or resentful, you'll only become a well-dressed narcissist. A true player isn't a desperate hunter. He's an emotional architect. A man who understands how to provoke desire without begging, who has learned to be desired without selling out, who masters the game and plays less. Because when you understand the rules, you start playing less and win more. Now, imagine what happens when you combine all this with what's in the Forbidden Manual. Techniques that couldn't be shared in this video for one simple reason. They're too good to be free. Techniques that transform small talk into instinctive connections. That hack the female reptilian brain, that make her think of you when she's with another guy. If you thought that was bold, it's because you haven't heard it yet. But before you rush into it, breathe and revisit everything you've learned here. Because now you have the 3 pieces of the game: perceived value, sharp game, and strategic exposure. Now you have the compass that separates the desired from the desired. And when you run into her at the next party, at the cafe, on Instagram, remember, she doesn't need to know who you are. You just need to send the right signals. Because in the end, it's not the one who tries the hardest who wins. It's the one who's impossible to ignore who wins. You know what's craziest about all this? It's realizing that a man's greatest prison isn't in the external world, it's within himself. It's in the judgments he silently repeats, in the "I'm not good enough" he's carried since adolescence, in that first rejection he never got over, in that trauma that became his identity. He says he wants to change, but deep down, he's afraid of what he'll discover if he truly becomes the man he wants to be. Because that man will force him to bury the weak version that kept him safe for years. Most people don't fail because they don't know. They fail because they can't bear to give up the self-image that protected them from pain. They fail because they'd rather say this isn't for me than admit I didn't have the courage to transform myself. And here, my brother, is the harsh truth. You have no right to comfort if you chose to be desired. Comfort is for the forgettable. Seduction is for the brave. You can get back to your routine now. Close this video, open WhatsApp, watch memes on Instagram, and continue living as you always have. But deep down, that voice that awakened inside you won't be silenced, because it proved, even if only for a few minutes, that you are more. That you have the potential to dominate the game, not be played. That you can be that guy who walks into a room and women look at you, not because he forced it, but because he is. The big turning point is understanding that all of this isn't about them. It never was. It's about you. It's about the man you're becoming. The game of seduction is just the visible surface of a much deeper process. Building your presence, your self-confidence, your emotional independence. Seduction isn't the end. It's the side effect of a solid identity. And the more solid you are, the more fluid your magnetism will be. Think about it. How many guys do you know who are rich, handsome, well-dressed, but can't generate true desire? Because desire doesn't respond to appearance. It responds to energy, and energy can't be bought. Energy is forged, and this forging is internal. It's sweaty, it's sometimes lonely, but it's glorious. Nietzsche said, "Become who you are." It sounds poetic, but it's brutal. Because it involves destroying everything you believe yourself to be, to access what you can truly become. True seduction begins the moment you stop trying to impress and start expressing yourself powerfully. When you stop seeking approval and start provoking reactions. When you realize you don't need to be accepted by everyone. It's enough to be unforgettable to some. And here's a final provocation. What if everything you thought made you attractive was exactly what makes you forgettable? What if your excessive politeness, your fear of appearing offensive, your striving to be cool, were just another mask for your unaddressed insecurity? What if, in truth, you weren't being rejected for who you are, but for who you pretend to be? You don't have to be cruel, but you do have to be real. You don't have to be arrogant, but you do have to be intense. You don't have to be a character, but you do have to be a man who commands respect with his gaze, desire with his silence, and connection with a well-placed phrase. Seduction is the reflection of your identity in a woman's mirror. If she sees weakness, she backs away. If she sees power, she feels it. And desire isn't argued with. Desire is unleashed. That's why this video wasn't made to entertain you. It was made to awaken you, to force you to look yourself in the eye and ask, how long will I accept living as an extra in my own potential? And if that question hurts, great. Pain is the first sign that you're coming out of dormancy. And if at any point in the video you found yourself thinking, this makes sense to me, then my work is done. Because that means the seed has been planted, and now it's up to you to water it. Apply it, test it, play the real game. Because as Jung said, you do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the inner darkness conscious. From now on, either you return to your old self and live with the guilt of knowing you could do better, or you accept the challenge of becoming a rare man. A high-value man with a sharp game and a presence that makes a statement. A man who inspires desire without saying a word. And when you reach that point, you won't need to chase after it, because what is rare attracts. What is authentic magnetizes, and what is true never goes unnoticed. Now go, apply, experiment, be seen. And if down the road you want to delve even deeper into this game, you already know where to find the next level, inside the Forbidden Manual. But only go if you're ready to stop being just another one, and finally become the only one.